And getting straight into the top 5 news stories of the day, months of tension and unrest exploded overnight in Ferguson, Missouri. You know, this was the scene after a grand jury announced Officer Darren Wilson would not be indicted for the shooting death of teenager Michael Brown, who was unarmed. The prosecutor says the jury came to the conclusion that the officer acted in self-defense. Many inconsistencies and information in witness accounts were also cited. Almost immediately after the announcement last night, people began pouring into Ferguson streets to protest the decision. Some taunted police, broke windows, and vandalized cars. As you can see in this video, several buildings were set on fire. Officials say at least a dozen have burned. Trying to prevent such violence, Michael Brown's family released a statement after the decision. They said they were profoundly disappointed that their child's killer will not face the consequences of his actions. They also urged people not to act out with violence and instead to work towards making lasting change. The president also addressed the nation.
The fact is, in too many parts of this country, a deep distrust exists between law enforcement and communities of color.
Brown's family is expected to speak on the grand jury's decision today at noon. And as people took to the streets in Ferguson, the rest of the nation followed suit. After the decision, people from New York to Chicago, LA, and Florida all came out to protest the grand jury's decision not to indict Officer Darren Wilson. Many saying that the issue speaks to the nation and the underlying racial tensions that still exist in some communities. And of course, we'll come back to the issue of Ferguson in just a minute, but let's look at some other headlines being big news this morning. Yesterday was also a big day for the big White House as they announced the resignation of Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel. Now, the president says it was a mutual decision and that they both agreed it was a good time for him to end his service. Expert predicts Secretary Hagel's forced resignation is only the first of several to come. And Western New York is still digging out from last week's storm, and as the Thanksgiving holiday draws near, a nasty weather system is threatening to ruin travel plans for some. Weather experts say a nor'easter is expected to develop on the East Coast Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, bringing heavy rain, wind, and some snow. All major airlines are monitoring the situation, and officials say be sure to pack your patience as you get ready to travel. All right, moving back to the top story of the day. As riots and protests broke out in Ferguson after the grand jury decided not to indict Officer Darren Wilson for the shooting death of unarmed teenager Michael Brown, celebrities also took to social media to respond. Rihanna posted this pic with the caption, "Facts," while LeBron posted this pic on Instagram with a lengthy caption and the hashtag, "We have to do better." Other celebs took to Twitter to express their feelings as well. Katy Perry tweeted in summation, quote, "Sending my prayers to Ferguson and praying for an equal America," while TV writer Shonda Rhimes tweeted a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. As you can see there, of course, Gabriel Union also expressed what has been a popular sentiment over the last few weeks, quote, "All of our lives matter. Hear us, feel us, respect us all." Powerful quote right there. And Magic Johnson chimed in saying justice was not served in Ferguson. You know, I have to say, with all of these emotions, no matter what you believe, as Michael Brown's parents said in a statement, I think it's so important that we channel our frustration into positive change.
Oh, yes, girl.
We need to work together. Of course, violence is not the answer. There has been protests all over that have been worse, police said, since the shooting in August. But it's also important to know many people are protesting peacefully as well. So that's the answer, in my opinion.
Yeah, and speaking of his family, we sometimes forget what they're feeling, you know,
The
right
moms.
now. Their mother and father, because, you know, the fact of the matter, their son is dead, you know, shot 6 times. And I can't speak for all black people, but I'm definitely hurt from this. It makes us feel that we are undervalued in the society when time after time the justice system lets us down. But we have to abide by this verdict. It is what it is. But this has got to stop somewhere. You know, we thought Trayvon Martin, I think, was the last time that, you know, we would go through something like this. And when I say we, I mean America.
Of course.
Right.
I don't
The whole
mean me
nation.
as a black person or a person of color. We need to stop going through this.
Yeah, and you see in these protests, the peaceful ones, like there's people of all races are there, you know, to send out the message. Social media has been really big in this, but it also, you know, on the other side too, it opens up a discussion of something that people hate to talk about because they say, oh, it's 2014. It's why do we have to talk about racism? You guys are always using that. You know why we talk about it? Because it still exists.
Well,
exactly.
the new form of racism is denying racism.
Exactly.
You know, that's just the point. You know, yeah. Oh, we have a black president. That doesn't mean that racism doesn't exist.
And in fact, speaking of the president, you know, he addressed the nation last night and even admitted, of course, there's so much racial tension.
Yeah.
There's a lot of obvious things happen. We're not close to ending it.
No.
A lot of people wondering also what's next in this case. So the FBI, along with the St. Louis County Police, are gathering evidence to determine whether or not Wilson violated Brown's civil rights. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these trials are really hard to prove, but we will, as always, continue to keep you guys updated on this.
And do not destroy the city. I mean, thinking they're going to rebuild. I told you guys earlier, I come from a city, the poorest city in the nation, Camden, New Jersey, which back in the 60s, 70s was destroyed over lots of protests over racism.
Yeah.
And it was never rebuilt.
Rioting
Never again.
has never solved one thing.
Never.
You know, in our history.
Right.
Only peaceful protest that was done by Martin Luther King Jr. We need to take those same stances and to hopefully, you know, rectify this, you know, and move
make
forward.
some positive change, as you said, a lasting
absolutely.
change rather than something that maybe feels good at the moment but isn't going to provide anything.
Right.
Right.
But I do
other
know
than
that
destruction.
the black community, though, is ready for some type of justice.
course.
And
Yeah.
you know, one life isn't better than any other. Any color isn't better than the other, but it seems to be skewed to a certain side right now. You know, and hopefully we can move on from this.
Yeah, but you see people have more of a voice now too, because even on social media.
On social media, absolutely.
You know?
We can at least feel like we can express ourselves. Freedom of speech.
For sure.
Exactly.